all you positive heads out there, welcome back to today's episode of the brand spanking new daily podcast that Dalien and I started last week. Hello, Dalien. Welcome to the show.
Hola.
Hola. Hola, amigo.
¿Cómo estás?
How's your day going today so far?
Doing wonderful.
Yeah?
How's your day?
So far, so magical. We're actually on Periscope again today. Oh, let me put the link out there to the world real quick.
Hi, everyone on Periscope, by the way.
Hello, all you Periscopians. For those of you that are not familiar with Periscope yet, it is a new app that allows you to live stream audio, video. It's pretty cool. So hold on one second here. Yeah, so you guys can check us out. We just posted a link we'll be posting the link on Facebook every day. It's automatically posted to Twitter where you can see our live Periscope stream. So you can see us picking our nose behind the mic. It's pretty cool. It gives you a behind the scenes view of anything in real time that people want to share. So, we're starting to use that tool. What's going on with you today, Dan? Anything exciting?
Oh, I've got an interesting bit of news that I'm going to share here with you in a minute.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's a wonderful, sunny Southern California day again.
Another day in paradise.
Exactly.
Well, I have a cool story. I spent this morning with a family friend who I haven't seen in a long time. It's my mother's best friend's daughter. And she came out to California from Pennsylvania and had breakfast with her and my mother. And it was just really exciting to see someone she grew up in Amish country. So, it's a different world completely. She's the sweetest girl. And, it's just growing up in a pretty sheltered environment and things like that. And she's venturing out. She's actually following a band for a week across, like 3 or 4 different shows. The Airborne Toxic Event, I think. And it's just really cool to talk to her and see someone who's really had this. I mean, can you imagine growing up in Amish country? She's not Amish or anything, but that's what she was raised around, and just very, very sheltered kind of world. And now she's starting to venture out and experience other things and other places. And it's so cool seeing people from all walks of life that are just opening up. And she's, of course, been raised very, conservative views and religious and things like that. And, when you can see and talk to these individuals that are having experiences like, oh, my gosh, like, what have I been waiting for my whole life? Why have I been, kind of living this sheltered sort of existence? And there's so much out there and not everyone's looking to harm me. And, I'm meeting all these amazing people. And, one of the things that I was saying to her is like, I think Eleanor Roosevelt said it, do something every day that makes you uncomfortable, stretch your boundaries. And that's something that she's doing. And she's met all these new amazing friends and people she'll be in touch with for her life. And, meanwhile, her mother back east is kind of concerned about her being out and adventuring, and it's very innocent adventuring, but it's just, it's really exciting for me to just see people from all walks of life that seem to be kind of opening up and coming online. And, in her case, I think she's 28, she said. And she just had this, kind of the same existence, this working in a box, not really living life to the fullest. And now she's like, what have I been doing with my life? And it's a really interesting, like I said, just a very interesting observation for me to see people, from all different walks of life that are kind of like all of a sudden their perspective shift is happening. And, they're experiencing things that they maybe in the past wouldn't have dreamed of, stepping out and just coming cross country, following a band and ending up in California and meeting strangers and, spending time, completely out of your comfort zone. So I think it was, like I said, it was exciting for me to see that.
That is a really cool bit of news there. And what's I imagine is especially cool is that I have the feeling some of the people listening to this podcast will be able to relate to what you just said in their own personal way. But the whole journey from a rather small sort of world, where everything's sort of self-contained, you've lived, say, in the same place your whole life. You've known, kind of the same small group of people most of your life, your family, close friends, etc. For that world to expand and open up in that way, I'd have to imagine that people listening to this podcast are experiencing, some people, of course, are experiencing something like that. I'd have to say that I am going through something much like that, and I relate completely to what you just said about, living sort of open life, going with the flow, opening up to new experiences and sort of following, going where life takes you.
Yeah, I think it's something that, and I've heard it explained before, of course, we're on a spaceship hurtling. I love referring to it as Spaceship Earth because that's really an accurate depiction of what's happening. And I've heard it said, that we're entering a new region of space. When you consider you're traveling at this tremendous, I forget what the miles per hour is, hundreds of thousands of miles per hour. You're hurtling through space, through, this vast cosmos. And I've heard the idea put forth that we're entering a new region of space where the vibration is elevated. And of course, we're affected by everything, just like we know for a fact people are affected, women are affected by the moon and it's all affecting us. So as we're entering this new area of space, it's actually forcing the vibration, our cells to vibrate at a higher frequency. And as a result, it's creating this, sort of enlightening kind of thing that seems to be happening more and more from people, all walks of life, experiencing it. And I just think that's an interesting way to consider sort of the awakening that I always talk about on the show, because I'm fascinated as I see more and more people having a perspective shift, an opening, and it's not always necessarily this deep, profound spiritual thing, just becoming more open and more open-minded. I can think of sitting there this morning having the conversation with this family friend and my mother there, who's very conservative, and I think of how much she's opened her mind in the last few years. It's like, it's almost like anyone, no one's safe to this expansion that's happening across the planet, and that's a good thing. So yeah, but I really enjoy the concept, thinking, once again, we're hurtling through space, we're entering a new region of space, and that is a physical movement, a physical activity that's happening that's causing people to kind of like react. Their cells are being affected by this new region of space. And of course, it's been predicted by all kinds of ancient cultures. And you have the Mayans talked about 2012, and a lot of people thought it meant the end of an era, but actually it's referring to, I believe, and many others, that it was a new era of awakening and an enlightenment on the planet. So it's exciting to see, and just within, personal family type situations.
Indeed.
So you have a story that you want to share today.
I do have a story, yes.
This is going to be the positive story of the day.
And now for your positive story of the day.
So this is being featured on the BBC website right now, and it concerns the effectiveness of placebos. As you probably know, placebos are how shall we call it? A substitute for medicine, you could say, that is not considered to be active, right? But that it produces an effect in you regardless, mimicking somehow the medicine. So anyway, there's recent research that indicates that placebos, at least here in the U.S., are becoming apparently more effective versus real medicine.
Really?
Yes. For example, one trial of drugs for treating neuropathic pain, research led by Dr. Jeffrey Mogul at McGill University in Montreal, found that the trend, I'm reading now from the article on the BBC site, this doctor found that the trend was being driven by studies conducted in the U.S. Okay, of course, he's in University in Montreal, but they're finding that Americans seem to be getting better merely by taking part in studies these days. Okay, so people are signing up for trials of drugs, right? They're being given a drug that's being tested for to help treat pain, for example, and a certain subset of these people are being given a placebo. So some of these people are signing up to try a drug, and they're actually trying nothing, right? Like a sugar pill, for example. But recent research suggests that the placebos are becoming almost as strong or effective as the drugs themselves.
Wow. So
there's a strong element of the researchers somehow influencing the people who are participating in these studies.
Oh, really?
The article talks about it a little bit about that. How, for example, Dr. Ted Kapchuk at Harvard Medical School was giving migraine sufferers a drug or a placebo, and he found that depending on how he was labeling the envelopes, if he wrote, of course, the name of the drug or the word placebo, it had a high degree of influence on the people who were taking them, regardless of whether the label on the envelope was accurate or not.
Wow.
So there's a very strong component of expectation.
Wow.
Being, what dictates how effective this is.
Wow. It goes back to one of, I instantly think of one of my favorite books, The Biology of Belief. And it's like, what we're thinking is creating what's happening in any given moment. And I love to hear that placebos are becoming more effective because I've said before jokingly, and really I'm not joking that much because I believe it. I think we'll find out everything ultimately is a placebo. You're creating your reality with your thoughts. And when you have these studies that are proving that someone can be given a sugar pill and it's as effective as a pain reliever, it's just fascinating. It really should be empowering to people, I believe, to realize how much of your reality you're creating with your thoughts. And it goes down not just to pain and health and, all those things, which I talk about a lot. I've said, many times, and you probably heard me say on the show, I don't believe in getting sick. I always say that. And as a result, what happens? I am sick so rarely. I haven't been in the hospital since the day I was born. And so it's just something that I give a lot of energy to. And as a result, that I'm manifesting my reality. And it happens in so many small ways, not just big ways in life, but in small ways too. Another thing that I've gotten into the habit of is always joking, saying, okay, parking gods, give me a good spot whenever I get to a place that's really packed and there's not a lot of parking from the looks of things out on the outside. And I, without fail, will find a good spot. And now, even my family members and stuff will laugh about it like, man, it works every time, So it's one of those things. I encourage you to try it. Try believing something that stretches you beyond your comfort zone and really put some energy into it and see what kind of results you get. It goes from a placebo with medicine, it goes for getting a parking spot, it goes for creating your job situation. I mean, just like one of those things, it's just more of the same stuff. And so that is an amazing piece of news to hear because it just confirms. I love it when science is confirming, any of these concepts that I'm always talking about, because you of course have people that want to hear things from a scientific perspective. And I do too. I get that. I totally respect that, So when you can see and hear things like that, how do you explain that? How, the only way to explain it is you're creating your reality with your beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you think
makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
According to my model of reality, of course, I, much like you, see consciousness as being sort of the ultimate reality, you could say, right?
Yeah.
If everything boils down to bits of information that are stored everywhere, you could say, then all of this is information that's encoded either in the cells of your body, the molecules that make up your, being, really.
Yeah.
And I think that science is finding more and more that information is stored in our bodies, that it can be accessed by ourselves, and that it can be controlled, really shaped by us to the point where we can sort of rewrite our own genetic code, I think.
Right. And that's what the biology belief basically shows. That with your beliefs, you're turning genes on and off. We've always been taught that genes are these fixed things. Like, oh, I get this from my mother or father. Nothing I can do about it. I'm a victim to these circumstances. And it's not how it actually works. We've been misinformed. You're literally turning genes off and on based off of the beliefs that you have. It's incredible. It really is. And it's really empowering when you realize how much it's all in your control. People think of how many people out there feel disempowered and like a victim mentality. And as a result, they are, So great story. Thank you for sharing. I also like to touch on at least some little positive paranormal story because, or something that's kind of woo-woo because I geek out on that stuff all the time. How many of you guys have seen this planet that they found? I think it's like, I don't know, what is it? 1,500, just looking it up there, 1,500 light years away from Earth, they found with the Kepler telescope, they kept noticing over several years that this star is dimmed oddly, essentially. And what they've realized, it's too substantial, the dimming. It's unlike anything they'd seen before. for it to be caused by a planet crossing the star's face. So researchers say one of the possible explanations is, well, they say an enormous dust cloud was another that people talked about, and they said that didn't really add up either. One of the big hypotheses is that it could be an alien civilization that's built huge structures, that are a giant assortment of like orbiting solar panels, is what one person said. So it's a really interesting, it's been getting quite a bit of press. It's an interesting concept. I love, we talked a little bit about UFOs for the first time in the Thrive documentary interview with Foster and Kimberly Gamble. And I recommend you guys checking out that documentary. If you haven't, you can watch it free online. But this is a topic that I find fascinating. So it's really cool to see something physical that, our scientists are seeing and saying, hey, we don't have an answer for this. One potential is that it could be something artificial that's been created. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I'm sure you've talked about this briefly before in the 25, 26 episodes we've done. Well, 27 really, but...
And counting.
Yes. I have to ask you though, point blank right now, you do believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life?
Oh my gosh. Of course. Like, how could there be?
I know,
it's the height of arrogance to think that in this vast cosmos that we could be the only, possible thing. Now NASA's come out and said, yeah, we know there's water on, Mars. So that's one planet over. It's like, which is the building block of all life, right? Water, at least the type of life we understand.
Yes.
And meanwhile, we know that there's, billions of Earth-like planets out there. So it's just, it's the height of arrogance to think that we would be the only, living thing that exists in this vast cosmos. I love the movie. I remember the movie Contact.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Oh, it's a classic.
And they talk about, well, if we all are alone, it's a horrible waste of space. And I think that's really, really clever. It would be. I mean, what would be the point of it all? The universe is experiencing itself through intelligent life, and we are, that's what we are. There's got to be more. And then when you look at, the proof that of the number of people from military, people to astronauts to pilots. In Thrive, in the interview with the Gambles, we talk about that, and it's discussed in the documentary as well. I think it's like 3,500, credible, pilots and military officials and something like that that have come forward with, their own experiences. I mean, it's an incredible amount of information out there on this stuff. If you take a look at it, it's pretty overwhelming that there is something going on, that we've been visited. There's things that are here now that we can't explain. So I think it's just a matter of time until it becomes common knowledge, as do many others.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're at the point where, of course, I don't believe that things have to fall one way or the other, where you have to say, oh, I'm a believer or a skeptic 100% one way or the other. But right. I think it's already gotten to a point where you can use that old maxim: if you are a skeptic, then no amount of evidence will ever be enough.
Right.
And if you're a believer, then you already have all the evidence you need.
Right.
So
yeah, makes total sense. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see here. The next thing that I would like to do is go over the positive pondering of the day. So this will be the ponder this. So what we do with these positive ponderings, we read off a quote, a favorite quote of someone, maybe someone famous, maybe someone not, that either myself or Dalien here or one of our other writers really appreciates. And then we give a ponder this breakdown. And today it is Chris Ponzi, who is a writer for positivehead.com. Chris is a great friend of mine, and you can actually check out his stuff. Let me make sure I got the right address. It's ponzidream.co is his site. And he's, poet and writer, and he does all kinds of amazing creative stuff. So today's positive pondering is written by, or the breakdown is written by Chris Ponzi. The actual ponder this quote is Sigmund Freud, and it goes, before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first make sure that you are not, in fact, just surrounded by assholes. So thank you, Chris, for adding the first curse word to the Positive Head site. Because
that's not even the
inevitable. So I'm going to read off his Ponder This breakdown, his interpretation of what Freud was talking about. Here's his one sentence interpretation. In our clinically diagnosed prescription-happy culture, we are quicker now than ever to give our often transient emotional states permanent diagnosis. How perfect by the way, Dan, with what you came up with is this is a perfect synchronicity of what you came up with as the story of the day. We're talking about diagnosing emotional states, right? Okay, start over. In our clinically diagnosed prescription-happy culture, we are quicker now than ever to give our often transient emotional states permanent diagnosis. But before we jump into syndrome land, let's take a step back and make sure we aren't just surrounding ourselves with people that make us feel bad about ourselves and our lives suck more. Motivational speaker Jim Rohn famously once said that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Highly successful people have figured this out too, preferring to surround themselves with people who are smarter, more experienced, wiser, more creative, etc. than them because they know that just being around their energy will make them grow positively as a person. I myself prefer to only collaborate creatively with people whom are significantly more talented than me because I know it'll only make me and my work better. Likewise, if our close friends are extremely negative, cynical, unmotivated, the darkness overcomes the dawn kind of people, then we will undoubtedly be affected by their energies and personalities. I have had the privilege of spending my life in a lot of diverse social circles with lots of different kinds of people with different ideological, moral, and lifestyle frameworks. It's not uncommon that I might spend one day or night with one group of friends, only to spend the next day with a group whose very essence is contradictory to the previous. Within these social subgroups, there's undoubtedly a homogeneity, both good and bad, taking place. Like-minded people attract like-minded people, and that energy feeds into another. Yet because we share commonalities with certain friends or coworkers that bring us together, we also bringing in their negative qualities as well. Yin and yang, light and dark, we all have qualities and habits that we are working to transform. So no one is perfect, and you will never find any group of perfect people. Plus, that would be boring. However, I'm compelled to recall one of my best friends in my early high school years. I was a very depressed, high anxiety, and low self-esteem kid who was considering prescription medication to treat these ailments. It also happened during this time that one of my best friends, whom I spent a lot of time with, also had deep-rooted insecurities. But while my insecurities manifested themselves inwardly or through poetry, my friend would often project his own insecurities onto me in harsh criticisms and cruel behavior. It wasn't until after almost 2 years of insidious verbal abuse that I finally stood up for myself and stopped being friends with him. Not so surprisingly, a short time after we stopped being friends, I felt my happiness and my self-esteem rise. It rose even more when I found a group of true friends who were supportive and awesome that I'm still close with to this day. You may have heard the phrase in some form or another, life is too short not to like the people you work with. Why does this phrase have wisdom? A lot of people might say that if the job pays well, then just suck it up for a while until you can save enough money to do what you want to do with the people you want to do it with for longer. But think about it. If the people you work and interact with almost daily and whose energies carry with you into the weekend, they undoubtedly affect your very own personality, health, both mental and physical, and energetic states. If the people you work with are not the kinds of people you would want to be around with, or that will help you grow positively, you are ultimately not growing positively either, and perhaps even the opposite. It's possible that by the time you get out of that work environment, your very essence has been so profoundly changed, you aren't who you want to be, and it could take a lifetime to resolve the damage done. I think it's much more common nowadays to exaggerate symptoms from simple causes into an overly complicated complex of syndromes. You probably aren't a low energy and unmotivated person. You just don't get enough sleep. Sometimes you don't have a terrible illness, you're just not eating healthy. You probably aren't feeling like you hate your partner, you're just really hungry and taking it out on them. Likewise, before you decide you're depressed, just make sure you just aren't surrounded by assholes who make you feel bad about your beautiful self and life.
Another wonderful Ponzi blog. He's really, really good.
Yeah, he's a great writer. Thank you for that one, Chris. Well done, well said. It works in so nicely with talking about, this whole placebo thing that you just talked about, Dan, and how we're, I think it's a great point. It's a great continuation of that conversation. We're so quick to say that something's wrong. I know we all know that person who's like, constantly talking about being sick and loves being sick. And what happens? They're always sick. Mm-hmm. So same thing with this. It's like, we're all such sensitive beings affected by everything and everyone around us. It's like, be very aware of who you're surrounding yourself with, and don't be scared to remove yourself from the situation. A lot of times people stay stuck because of fear.
Yes, absolutely.
So, let's see here. Well, that was the Ponder This of the day. A couple more things I'd like to talk about before we move on with our lives and days and allow you to do the same. I did get a question today, and it actually came in from Mary, and it said, do you think sometimes always synchronicities are just your imagination connecting the dots? And I think that's a really, really great question.
It is.
As you know, on the interviews, my weekly interviews, if you listen to the podcast regularly, I always ask for stories of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story, because I love that sort of thing. And I could definitely see why someone would think that a synchronicity is sometimes a stretch, but there's also instances where they're so multi-layered and profound that you just can't deny you just can't deny it. And there's other times where I think, because everything's connected and we're all affected by energy around us, both future and past energy, I think sometimes it's just a signal of, the connection between things. A great example, I just did an interview that'll come out in a week or so, and it was, the guy who does the One You Feed podcast. Well, a few hours before I do the interview, the evening before I do the interview the next day, my partner Anna says, "Hey, let's watch a movie." She puts on this movie, Tomorrowland. What is the movie about? The One You Feed is the parable. And if you don't know what the parable is, we talk about it in that podcast. It's kind of a famous parable. And their whole podcast is based around that parable, right? Mm-hmm. Or it's like the theme. Well, what was the theme of this movie? The One You Feed at the beginning, and then the whole movie throughout, they reference back to it. So what is that? It's just a great synchronicity of, here's some energy that's coming into my world. It's going to be a part of my next 24 hours. Here's that same energy, kind of rearing its head in this. And does it always mean some great magical, thing? No, but sometimes it's just a indicator of energetic tie-ins. It's just, hey, here's something that you're resonating with right now. And so it's, and I think they're always a good indicator that you're on the right track too. That's what I've seen as a common theme with synchronicities is, they're usually representative of something very positive ultimately. So I've never gotten synchronicities too much that then lead to something really bad,
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was really cool. How you just told the story of synchronicity with Tomorrowland. I had my own that I narrated briefly last week, but it was just concerning that one song, the French national anthem, La Marseillaise. It's featured in the movie. And the thing is, we've talked about synchronicities and our understanding.
What movie was that
essentially what you just explained. It was Tomorrowland. The same flick.
Oh,
yes.
Right. That's right. I forgot that part. Yeah.
Right. No, what you just said, though, is cool because that also stood out to me. The fact that when they started talking about there's two wolves that are perpetually fighting. Of course, I've heard that. I don't know what you would call it, that proverb or whatnot.
Parable?
Right. So as soon as they sort of made any mention to that, I immediately in my head go, oh, okay, yeah, of course they're going to talk about the two wolves. But the whole movie, like you said, it's really all about that. And it does a really good job of sort of taking that concept and fleshing it out, expanding upon it, etc. But my synchronicity with that song, I suppose, was so, to me, really strong and blatant, but also rather nonsensical in itself. I mean, I don't think that there's really any more profound significance to the song itself other than it being
Here's the
so
interesting thing. I just talked about synchronicities can be multi-layered. I had completely forgotten that you had shared this same synchronicity about this song last week, but the fact that it was on the same movie, when we watched Tomorrowland, my memory's not that long. We watched Tomorrowland that night. I had forgotten. I really hadn't thought any more about your synchronicity story. I think we recorded that was last Tuesday, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Something like that, yeah.
So yeah, if you can go back to what episode is that? Can you look up what number it is?
I want to say it was 23.
So if you go back to episode 23, you'll hear Dan talk about his synchronicity with this song. Now here we are. I'm telling a synchronicity about the one you feed, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's from the same movie where I had my synchronicity that I reported on last week." So now you've got multi-layered. So you said, "Oh, there's no real meaning to it," like you're just saying. Well, actually, Dan, if you start weaving it together, look at how now we have a multi-layered synchronicity all tied to the same movie that is unfolded over a week's period of time. That is just, it's just fascinating to watch and connect the dots. And like I said, it's not always some deep, profound thing, but it can be. I mean, there are instances where it's pointing, I've had synchronicities, and I talk about some of them in earlier podcasts. And, of course, some of my guests, some are much more fascinating than others. You hear some of these stories, from interviewees that are just like, holy moly, like this is incredible. So it's just like everything else, though. If you're open to it, you allow it in. If you're not, and in my case, I'm so excited about it and geek out about it all the time. So it's like that energy, that positive excitement attracts more of it into my world. And if someone's not open-minded, of course, it's just like turning that switch off. It doesn't even allow it in. Mm-hmm. So I encourage, like I always say to anyone I meet, and I'll say it on the show here, don't believe me. Just be open-minded enough to the idea. Ask the universe, hey, I want to see one of these cool synchronicities. I've never had one. Universe, God, source, higher self, me, whatever you want to call it. Give me one of these experiences, and be open to the idea that you can have one. And I guarantee you there will be people out there. If you do that, you'll get some experiences that are, it just adds a bit of magic into your world. And it also can lead you to where you're supposed to go next. And that's one of the things that I found, a lot of times with them. It's like kind of a wink from the universe. Up, follow this path. Yep, this is a good one. Yep, this is a good one. And it becomes more and more of being guided from something beyond, your own mind and logic, and, the more regularly available signs that people follow in life.
Mm-hmm. That is my preferred way to see synchronicities. Virtually exactly what you just said. I don't necessarily read deeper meaning into every single one of them, but I do definitely try to acknowledge every single one of them as a wink from the universe. Even if there's no, rather profound message there, just that wink in itself is profound enough, I feel.
Right. Right. Well, guys, that's we're running out of time here for today's podcast. Please check us out. If you take a moment to give us a rating on iTunes, it literally is like a 7-second. You just go under the ratings and review section, click on the stars. If you want to write a review too, even better. But if anything, just click on the stars. It helps a lot as far as getting rankings on iTunes, which then gives us more exposure to more people. So if you're enjoying, what we're putting our heart and soul and intention in with this podcast, give us 7.2 seconds of your time. That would be awesome. Otherwise, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, as long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Be well, everyone.